In 1776, on the night of May 1st, 5 men gathered in a forest near a small Bavarian city called Ingolstadt. There were no cameras. No witnesses. Only torchlight cutting through the dark between the trees. The men spoke in whispers. They used names that were not their own. The leader of the group, a university professor who looked completely unremarkable by day, called himself Spartacus that night. The others each took names from antiquity. They were academics, lawyers, and thinkers. And they believed, with total sincerity, that they were about to change the world. Those 5 men made a pact that night. They called themselves the Perfectibilists. They swore to change the world in secret. And they almost pulled it off. Less than 10 years later, that same organization was hunted down by government agents, raided, banned by royal decree, and erased from the official record. Their leader fled the country in the middle of the night. Their documents were seized and published as evidence of treason. Members were thrown in prison. Others were exiled from their homes. The whole thing was over. But here is the part that nobody talks about. The name never died. That secret society, the one that actually collapsed in 1785, became the most famous conspiracy theory in human history. 250 years later, people are still convinced the Illuminati controls governments, banks, celebrities, and entire nations. Their symbol appears on currency. Their name is whispered in YouTube comments and Reddit threads and dinner table conversations in every country on Earth. They have been blamed for revolutions, assassinations, economic crashes, pandemics, and the rise of global pop stars. So today I went through the actual historical documents, the real sources, the real records, to find out the truth. What happened to the Illuminati after they were banned? Did they disappear completely? Did they survive underground and become something even more powerful? Or is the real story something stranger than either of those possibilities? Stick with me until the end of this video, because what I found in those records will completely change the way you look at this story. I promise you, this is not what you think it is. If you are into real history, real evidence, and real mysteries that hold up under scrutiny, subscribe right now because this video only gets stranger from here. To understand what really happened, you have to go back to the beginning. Not the version from movies or internet forums. The real beginning. And the real beginning is not mysterious or glamorous. It starts with a lonely, brilliant, deeply frustrated university professor who felt like the system around him was rotten, and decided to do something about it in the most secretive way imaginable. Adam Weishaupt was born in 1748 in Ingolstadt, Bavaria. His father died when he was 5 years old. He was raised by his godfather, a powerful man named Baron von Ickstadt, who was a professor of law and a member of the Privy Council. Weishaupt grew up surrounded by books, ideas, and the influence of the Catholic Church, because in Bavaria at that time, the Church controlled almost everything, including universities. Weishaupt was brilliant. He studied under the Jesuits and went on to become the first non-Jesuit professor of canon law at the University of Ingolstadt in nearly a century. That one fact matters more than people realize. The Jesuits had dominated that chair for generations. Weishaupt was an outsider who broke into their territory, and they hated him for it. The tension that came from that conflict would eventually push him towards something radical. By the time Weishaupt was in his late 20s, he had become obsessed with a single idea. He believed that humanity was being held back by two forces: organized religion that suppressed free thought, and monarchies that abused power. He wanted to create a group of enlightened thinkers who would quietly work from the inside to push the world toward reason, science, and freedom. Not through revolution. Through infiltration. On May 1, 1776, he founded the order in that forest with 4 of his students. The original name was the Order of Perfectibilists. The goal, in Weishaupt's own words, was to cultivate the social virtues and to animate them by a feasible prospect of universal happiness. He believed that if you could get the right people into positions of power, you could change everything without firing a single shot. The early years were small. At first, the group barely had a dozen members. But then something happened that changed everything. In 1780, a man named Adolf Freiherr Nigg joined the order. Nigg was a genius at organization and recruitment. He restructured the entire society, introduced Masonic-style rituals and degrees, and began recruiting aggressively through Masonic lodges across Germany and beyond. Within a few years, the Bavarian Illuminati had exploded in size. Members included writers, philosophers, and even members of nobility. The order operated across an area stretching from Italy to Denmark, from Warsaw to Paris. At its absolute peak, the organization may have had as many as 2,000 members, though it likely never exceeded that number. For a secret society, that was extraordinary reach. They used codes. Members operated under pseudonyms. Weishaupt himself went by the name Spartacus. His top lieutenant Nigg went by Philo. Every city, every region, every lodge had a codename pulled from the ancient world. Munich was Athens. Vienna was Rome. The whole geography of Europe was hidden inside a parallel map of classical antiquity, and only the initiated knew how to read it. Communication was encrypted. Lodges were infiltrated. The whole structure was built to be invisible to the outside world. The hierarchy was divided into three major classes. At the bottom were the novices, new recruits who knew almost nothing about the true goals of the organization. In the middle were the Minervals, members who had advanced far enough to begin understanding the real philosophy behind the order. At the top was the inner circle, the illuminated ones, who were aware of everything. This structure was deliberate. Weishaupt believed that most people could not handle radical ideas all at once. You had to feed them slowly. Gain their trust. Then, once they were fully committed, reveal what the order was really about. A novice preparing to advance to the rank of Minerval had to submit a detailed report on the titles of every book he owned, the identity of his enemies, and the weak points of his own character. Upon initiation, he swore to sacrifice all personal interests to those of the society. Every member was also expected to report on other members, creating a vast internal surveillance network. The order was watching itself constantly. Nobody fully trusted anyone else. And yet somehow, for years, it held together. The recruitment process was careful and deliberate. The order actively sought wealthy and influential candidates. Politicians, lawyers, doctors, writers, academics, people who already had access to corridors of power. The goal was not to build a large army. The goal was to place the right people in the right positions. 10 men in the right rooms could accomplish what 10,000 men marching in the street never could. That was Weishaupt's theory. And for a while, it worked. But then the cracks started to appear from within. Nigg and Weishaupt had a serious falling out over the direction of the organization. Nigg wanted a more moderate approach. Weishaupt held more radical views about religion and monarchy. The two men clashed repeatedly, and in 1784, Nigg resigned from the order entirely. Internal letters became venomous. Former members started talking. And that was the beginning of the end. By 1784, Bavaria had a new political climate. Courtiers and clergy had convinced the ruling Duke-Elector, Charles Theodore, to crack down on secret societies. On June 22, 1784, Charles Theodore issued the first edict banning all secret associations not previously authorized by the government. The Illuminati initially believed the edict was too general to target them directly. They were wrong. On March 2, 1785, the Bavarian sovereign issued a second edict. This one named them specifically. The Order of the Illuminati was banned by name. The Catholic Church had been pushing for this moment, and now it had arrived. But the real blow came later that same year, in July of 1785, through something almost too strange to believe. A priest named Johann Jacob Lang, who was secretly a member of the Illuminati, was struck by lightning and killed while traveling on a road. When police searched his body, they found documents on him. Instructions encouraging the clandestine continuation of the order's activities. Names of other members. The lightning strike had exposed them at the worst possible moment. Arrests followed. Police raided the homes of known members. Then in October of 1786, they hit the house of one of the order's most senior figures, a man named Swack. He had been warned just in time to flee. But he had not had time to destroy his documents. The raid uncovered an enormous archive. Letters from Weishaupt. Notebooks. Instructions. Financial records. And things that shocked even the investigators, including a defense of atheism, recipes for invisible ink and poisons, a plan to create a female branch of the order, and medical instructions for performing abortions. The government published these documents in 1787 as proof of the order's immorality and danger to the state. Adam Weishaupt was stripped of his professorship at Ingolstadt. He was banished from Bavaria entirely. He spent the rest of his life in exile, in the small town of Gotha in Thuringia, where he lived until 1830, writing books defending his ideas but never reconstructing the organization. He published a series of works in exile, including a complete history of the persecutions, an apology for the Illuminati, and a revised system of Illuminism. He kept writing until the very end. But nobody in power was listening anymore. Some members were imprisoned. Others were driven from their homes. The Illuminati, as an organized entity, ceased to exist. According to the Encyclopaedia Britannica, after 1785, the historical record contains no further activities of Weishaupt's Illuminati. They were gone. The organization was dismantled. The documents were public. The leader was in exile. There was nothing left to hide. At its peak, the group had operated across an area stretching from Italy to Denmark and from Warsaw to Paris. And all of it had been crushed in less than 2 years. Stop and think about that for a second. 9 years of work. Thousands of carefully recruited members. An encrypted communication network spanning half of Europe. A hierarchy so complex it took a manual to understand. And it collapsed because a priest got struck by lightning on a road and police searched his coat pockets. History does not always move the way you expect it to. But then something very strange happened. Something that nobody planned. And it would change the course of history in a way that the Illuminati never managed to do while they were actually alive. Because the idea of the Illuminati was just getting started. And the man who would light that fuse was not a radical or a rebel. He was a respected Scottish scientist with a long career in mathematics and physics. And he was furious about the French Revolution. Here is where the real story gets interesting. And I mean truly, genuinely strange. The Bavarian Illuminati dissolved in 1785. But within 12 years, they had been blamed for one of the most dramatic events in modern history, the French Revolution. And the people who blamed them were not uneducated conspiracy theorists. They were a respected Scottish scientist and a French Jesuit priest. Both published books within months of each other in 1797. And those 2 books changed everything. The first was written by John Robison, a professor of natural philosophy at the University of Edinburgh. Robison was serious, respected, and credentialed. He had contributed over 1,000 pages of articles to the 3rd edition of the Encyclopaedia Britannica. He was the first General Secretary of the Royal Society of Edinburgh. For over 20 years he had been an authority on mathematics and optics. This was not a fringe figure. He was the scientific establishment itself. But by the mid-1790s, Robison's health was deteriorating and his worldview had taken a dark turn. He watched the French Revolution unfold with horror. He saw a world he thought he understood collapsing into bloodshed and chaos. And he began reviewing documents, including the Bavarian government's published records about the Illuminati raids. What he found convinced him that the pattern he was looking for was real. The Illuminati had not disappeared. They had gone underground. And now they were destroying France. In 1797, Robison published a book called Proofs of a Conspiracy. In it, he argued that the Bavarian Illuminati had secretly survived their dissolution, infiltrated Masonic lodges across Europe, and engineered the French Revolution as part of a long-term plan to destroy monarchies and organized religion worldwide. The book was a bestseller almost immediately. It was reprinted multiple times and read across Britain and the United States. For a book about a secret society, it reached an extraordinary audience in a remarkably short period of time. Almost simultaneously, a French ex-Jesuit priest named Augustin Bérulle published a 4-volume work called Memoirs illustrating the history of Jacobinism. Bérulle made similar claims, arguing that the Illuminati, along with Freemasons and philosophers, had conspired to provoke the revolution and establish a godless world republic. Bérulle himself had been exiled from France because of his staunchly Catholic beliefs, and he viewed the revolution as something fundamentally un-French, a foreign conspiracy imported by shadowy forces. His books spread rapidly through Catholic Europe and also made their way across the Atlantic. Both books proved enormously popular. Both were also, according to modern historians, built on unsubstantiated claims. The evidence they cited was real in the sense that the Illuminati had actually existed and their documents had been published. But the leap from those documents to the claim that they had orchestrated the French Revolution was enormous, and it was never supported by credible historical evidence. As one academic summary bluntly described it, the story was nonsense. But it quickly became popular nonsense, and popular nonsense has a way of spreading faster than the truth. Why did it spread so fast? Because it answered a question that people desperately needed answered. The French Revolution had just turned the world upside down. A king had been executed. A queen had been guillotined. An entire social order had collapsed in chaos and blood. The streets of Paris had run red. And ordinary people across Europe and the Americas were terrified. They needed an explanation. A hidden hand. A cause behind the madness. Robison and Bérulle gave them one. It was clean. It was satisfying. It pointed at a villain with a name. The idea crossed the Atlantic almost immediately. In 1798, a reverend named Jedediah Morse delivered sermons across New England warning his congregations that the Illuminati were infiltrating the United States. One of the very first accounts of the Illuminati to be printed in America was Morse's Fast Day Sermon, delivered on May 9, 1798. Americans in the late 1790s began to genuinely fear that this dissolved Bavarian society was somehow operating in their country, corrupting their new republic from within. The fear reached into pulpits, into newspapers, into political speeches. For a period of 2 years, between 1798 and 1800, the Illuminati scare gripped significant parts of American intellectual life. None of it was true. There were no records. No membership lists. No financial trails. No meeting notes. Nothing. Every serious historian who has studied the question has reached the same conclusion: the Bavarian Illuminati ended in the 1780s, and there is no credible evidence of continuation past that point. But here is what made this different from ordinary misinformation. The books that spread the myth were written by credentialed people. A physicist. A theologian. They referenced real documents. They used real names. And they gave people a framework for understanding chaotic events in a world that felt completely out of control. Once that framework was established, it became almost impossible to dismantle. Because every attempt to debunk it could itself be reframed as part of the cover-up. Through the 19th century, the name Illuminati kept appearing. Whenever something large and unsettling happened in European or American politics, someone would reach for the Illuminati as an explanation. The Russian Revolution of 1917 was eventually blamed on them. The assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963 was connected to them. In the early 21st century, celebrities including Madonna, Beyoncé, Taylor Swift, and the late Henry Kissinger were all linked to the Illuminati in popular theories. The common thread in every single one of these cases was the same: no verified evidence, no credible documentation, no historical trail. Just the persistent, irresistible hunger for a hidden explanation behind events that felt too big and too chaotic to have happened by accident. So how did a group that never had more than 2,000 members, that existed for less than 10 years, that was thoroughly dismantled by government authorities, and that left no verified trace after 1785, become the most persistent conspiracy theory in human history? That is genuinely one of the most fascinating questions in the entire story of modern culture. And the answer has nothing to do with the Illuminati themselves. The answer is not about the Illuminati themselves. It is about what they represented to a world in crisis. And that is where the story takes an even deeper turn, because what happened next reveals something genuinely uncomfortable about the way human beings process fear, uncertainty, and the desperate need to make sense of things that refuse to make sense. Because what was really spreading across the world after 1797 was not accurate information about the Illuminati. It was a template. A structure. A ready-made way of explaining the world in which a hidden group of powerful people secretly controlled events that ordinary citizens could not understand or predict. And that template, once created and released into the world, could be applied to absolutely anything, in any era, in any country, by anyone who needed it. Think about this carefully for a moment. The actual Bavarian Illuminati lasted 9 years. 9 years. From 1776 to 1785. They never exceeded 2,000 members. They never successfully overthrew a government. They never started a revolution. Their leader died in quiet exile, writing books that almost nobody read. By any objective measure, they failed completely. And yet today, in 2025, the name Illuminati generates hundreds of millions of search results. It appears in blockbuster films. It sells novels. It drives engagement on social media platforms across every language on Earth. Documentaries are made about them. YouTube videos rack up tens of millions of views. The Illuminati, as a cultural phenomenon, is more powerful today than it ever was when the organization actually existed. How does that happen? The answer begins in the 1960s and 1970s, when a group of American writers deliberately turned the Illuminati into a joke, and accidentally made them immortal. In 1969, two writers at a satirical magazine called Playboy, Robert Shea and Robert Anton Wilson, started receiving letters from readers promoting elaborate conspiracy theories. Instead of dismissing the letters, they decided to write a satirical novel weaving all of them together. The result was the Illuminatus trilogy, published between 1975 and 1977. The books were absurdist, funny, and deliberately over the top. The joke was that the Illuminati were behind everything. Every conspiracy. Every major event in history. All of it connected. The books were a cult sensation. They were read by counterculture intellectuals, by punk musicians, by gamers, by artists. They filtered the Illuminati myth through irony and satire. But here is what nobody anticipated: the irony did not kill the myth. It amplified it. Because readers who encountered the book sometimes missed the joke entirely. They thought Shea and Wilson were revealing hidden truths in fiction form. And so the satirical Illuminati became more vivid, more complex, and more believable than the original historical conspiracy theories had ever been. By the 1990s, the internet arrived. And when it did, the Illuminati myth was perfectly suited for the new medium. The structure of the conspiracy was flexible enough to incorporate any new event. Any celebrity who flashed a triangle with their fingers. Any politician who gave a particular speech. Any logo that contained an eye or a pyramid. All of it could be absorbed into the existing framework. The myth was self-reinforcing. Every new piece of evidence seemed to confirm it. Every debunking was reinterpreted as proof that the conspiracy went even deeper. You could not disprove it, because the act of disproving it was itself proof that you were part of it. This is what academics call an unfalsifiable belief system. It cannot be tested, because it is designed to absorb all possible evidence on both sides. The Illuminati myth is probably the most successful unfalsifiable belief system in modern history. And it was built entirely on the ruins of an organization that lasted 9 years and never exceeded 2,000 members. By the early 2000s, the myth had jumped from forums to mainstream entertainment. Dan Brown's novels wove Illuminati symbolism into global bestsellers. Video games used the Illuminati as a central plot device. Music videos were analyzed frame by frame for hidden symbols. Every triangle in a logo became suspicious. Every one-eye gesture became a signal. The internet did not create the myth. But it gave the myth infinite space to grow, and infinite people to carry it forward. Today, dozens of organizations openly use the name Illuminati or claim to be descended from the original Bavarian order. None of them have any credible historical connection to Weishaupt's organization. Several are entertainment platforms or merchandise companies. The original Bavarian order is long gone. But the idea is something else entirely. And here is the part one want you to really sit with, because this is the most important thing this story has to teach us. John Robison and Augustine Barruel, the two men who created the modern Illuminati myth, were not stupid people. Robison was a brilliant scientist. Barruel was a learned theologian. Both were responding to real events, real chaos, real social upheaval. The French Revolution had genuinely destabilized the world. Things were changing faster than anyone could process. And in that environment, the mind reaches desperately for patterns. For explanations. For someone to blame. The Illuminati conspiracy theory did not spread because people were gullible. It spread because the alternative was too frightening. The alternative was that history is chaotic. That revolutions happen because of complex, interlocking pressures that no single group controls. That the world is not secretly ordered by powerful people pulling strings. That there is no puppet master. Just chaos, and human beings trying to navigate it. That is a terrifying thought. It is much more frightening than the idea that a secret society is running everything. Because if a secret society is running everything, then at least someone is in charge. At least the chaos has a cause. At least there is an enemy you can name. And naming an enemy, even an imaginary one, releases the paralysis of not knowing. It gives you something to push against. Psychologists who study conspiracy thinking have found that belief in hidden controllers tends to spike during periods of rapid social change, economic instability, and political uncertainty. The Illuminati myth was born during the French Revolution. It resurged during the World Wars. It exploded again after the Kennedy assassination. And it reached its current peak in the age of social media, when the amount of information flowing through human minds every day has become genuinely overwhelming. The more uncertain the world feels, the more appealing it is to believe that someone, somewhere, understands exactly what is happening and is steering it deliberately. Even if that someone is a villain. There is something almost comforting about that idea. A secret society controlling everything means the world is not random. It means there is an order beneath the surface, even if that order is sinister. It means that if you could just expose the hidden hand, everything would make sense. The alternative, that there is no hidden hand, that history is driven by thousands of competing pressures, accidents, personalities, and coincidences, is far harder to live with. It gives you nothing to fight. Nothing to expose. Nothing to blame. Adam Weishaupt understood something about this, in his own way, even if he never fully articulated it. He believed that humanity needed to be guided toward enlightenment by a small group of the right people operating in secret. He thought that human beings left to their own devices, manipulated by religion and monarchy, would never reach their potential. He wanted to be the hidden hand that steered everything toward reason. He failed. His organization was exposed, dismantled, and ridiculed. But the idea that a hidden hand exists, and that it is steering everything, outlasted him by centuries. The organization he built collapsed within a decade. But the myth that grew from its collapse has now lasted 2.5 centuries. And the reason the myth has lasted is not because it is true. It is because it is useful. It gives people a way to make sense of a world that keeps refusing to make sense on its own. It turns confusion into clarity, helplessness into opposition, and fear into purpose. So what really happened to the Illuminati after the 18th century? The answer, based on the actual historical record, is clear. They ended. They were banned, dismantled, documented, and scattered. Their leader died in exile. Their papers were published as evidence of their failure. The historical record, as confirmed by the Encyclopaedia Britannica, contains no trace of their continued activity after 1785. What survived was not the organization. What survived was the idea. And that idea, that somewhere hidden from view there is a group of people controlling everything, has proven more durable than any actual organization could ever be. Because organizations can be raided. Documents can be seized. Leaders can be exiled. But an idea, once it takes root in the human imagination, cannot be banned by royal decree. Cannot be dismantled by government agents. Cannot be driven from its home. The Bavarian Illuminati lasted 9 years. The idea they accidentally created has lasted more than 250. And if history is any guide, it will still be here long after all of us are gone. And maybe that is the most interesting part of the whole story. Not that a secret society existed. Not that it was destroyed. But that its destruction made it more powerful than it ever was while it was alive. Every real organization eventually runs into the limits of reality. Members disagree. Leaders flee. Documents get seized. But a myth has no leaders to exile and no documents to confiscate. A myth lives in the space between what people know and what they fear. And that space never runs out. Weishaupt wanted to change the world through a small, brilliant, secretive organization of enlightened thinkers. He failed at that. But in failing, he handed future generations something he never intended, a template for imagining power. A model of how a hidden hand could operate. A story that people could pick up and carry forward and add to and reshape for their own moment in history. Every generation finds its own version of the Illuminati. Because every generation faces its own version of the fear that the world is being controlled by forces it cannot see or name. And until that fear goes away, which is to say, probably never, the name that was first whispered in a forest in Bavaria on the night of May 1, 1776, is going to keep echoing. That is the real story. And now you know it. If this video changed how you think about the Illuminati, or about the way conspiracy theories are born and spread, leave a comment right now. Tell me what surprised you the most. Was it how quickly the real organization collapsed? Was it how the myth was created by credentialed, respected writers? Was it the role of the satirical Illuminatus novels in making the modern version of the myth? Was it the idea that unfalsifiable belief systems are designed to absorb all evidence, including the evidence against them? I genuinely want to know which part hit hardest for you. Drop a like if this gave you something to think about. It takes 2 seconds and it helps this channel reach more people who want real history, not just rumors. Subscribe if you want more investigations like this one, where we go past the surface and into the actual historical record. And if you want to go even deeper into this particular rabbit hole, comment the word part 2 right now, because there is an entire chapter of this story I did not get to cover today. The modern organizations that openly call themselves the Illuminati. What they actually are. Who runs them. What they want. And why the name keeps being used. That video is ready to go. But I only make it if you ask for it. The truth is always stranger than the theory. And it is always worth finding.